Senator Limpy said he didn't like following Mr. Hay earlier. Whenever I'm in the room with Mr. Limpy, he's the sharpest dressed guy I've ever been around. I don't mean any disrespect to the council. I came from a family vacation to be here today. I didn't know if my wife was going to let me come. Be that as may, here I am, and I'd like to share some things with you. My name is Mike Carter. I used to be a judge in the city of Wentzville, which is an outlying suburb of the St. Louis metropolitan area. It's in St. Charles County, though. It'd be neat if everybody in the committee actually, could be a judge for a week or two, in one of the municipalities that handles the red light cameras. There's a massive disdain by anybody who comes before municipal courts in general. Stop signs, no left turns, speedings. You've all probably had one yourself, but in general, when they come before me at that time or any judge, it could be their word versus the officer, or potentially on bended knee before the judge, him or herself, and asking for driving school or something to be done about a situation that was aggravating. They come to court and they deal with it. On the red light camera tickets, first, it's hard to get in front of the court. The whole system is set up to have you mail it in. They did everything. I'm an attorney, and I try to get court dates at St. Anne, Town and Creve Coeur, all the places in the St. Louis metropolitan area in order to deal with red light cameras and get them in front of a judge. And as an attorney, it's very difficult to get a court date in front of a judge that you can talk to them about. The whole system is set up to never get in front of a judge. So once they do, if you are a defendant who's got a red light camera and you get in front of a judge, if you all could be one for a week or two or however long you'd like to, you would quickly see that the disdain for a red light camera ticket is about 100 or 1,000 times that of any other speeding ticket or left turn ticket that any of us have had, or a friend or loved one or something. So I could echo a lot of the things that Senator Limpy said and Mr. Matt Hay, and kind of bore you with some details. That was the main point I wanted to make. I've lived in the system. I know exactly what drives it, all the things the discourse a moment ago was about as far as money versus public safety. If you live there like Matt Hay has as a council person or as a judge, if you live and breathe it, there's no doubt what is driving it, and it's money. It's not keeping somebody off the road who runs 10 red lights or anything like that. It's the exact opposite. So visit with your own judges in your areas that you represent. If they've got red light cameras, ask them what they think about it. If you can get a candid response from them, some of them see their paycheck tied to it. You've got municipalities in a down economy trying to get whatever monies they can. The city of St. Anne has got 2 or 3 dead malls. Their Walmart moved down the street. Now their cameras, speeding cameras, are turned off, and their revenue sources are, unfortunately driven a lot by this kind of thing. I wanted to address Mr. Peters' question. Representative Peters asked a little bit ago, do you think if there was a way to create a situation where the intersection was dealt with to where a very clear red light violator, at certain intervals, should be punished? And I think the answer is, unfortunately, because I think it should be banned completely, but I think the answer, according to some federal research, is that you can punish some violators if they stop at the right part of an intersection, and especially if there's an officer there on hand with a 360-degree field of view, unlike a camera that has a limited scope. Officers review those in a room with on a monitor. But unfortunately for the red light camera companies, if you actually give the tickets to the people who are the most egregious violators, who come in after what's called an all clear, they keep all the red for a little while before the crossing traffic. Once the crossing traffic stops, you don't automatically get a green light. It waits, it pauses a couple seconds so that everybody doesn't run into the people who aren't paying attention. If you wait for those egregious violators, the revenue drives up fast. 95 or 6% of all the violations that are issued by red light camera tickets disappear if you do it like Representative Peters was suggesting, that you actually hit somebody who ran it and did something that you're trying to prevent, and they don't like that. So I wanted to address that. I don't know if it does specifically, but I hope that it does. That's me in a nutshell.
Have you, as a judge, you've had the red light camera people who have received these tickets come before you?
Yeah,
okay.
A lot of them.
Have you ever had them try to explain why some of them might have moved beyond the white line or have run the red light? And the reason I'm asking is because just from my experience driving or My experience when I was in the Marine Corps, for example, sometimes you're in a situation and you have to quickly assess something that might be threatening or a potentially dangerous situation. I remember sitting at a red light before and someone speeding up behind me, and I don't think they're going to slow down. And the intersection being clear, I decided just to move forward a little bit to give the guy that's speeding up behind me a little bit of room. And I can imagine that I would probably have been ticketed in some of these intersections had they had red light cameras also. Have you ever encountered somebody who is trying to explain their circumstance by saying, well, here's the situation that the camera didn't see? Is that something that you've heard?
Yes, in short, let me know if I skip past the meteor question, but one, as a judge, I mean, everybody's got an excuse for something every time somebody comes before you, so that never stops. On the red light cameras, though, it is 5 or 10 or 1,000-fold more the case, and, you know, weather and those kinds of things, but more regularly was red light turns on red, or making a right turn on red lights. And people come to a pretty good pause that probably most of us in this room did on the way here today, or see, or would not have an issue with. You come up to a red light, mostly come to a stop, and then make your way through because no one's coming through the section at 2:30 a.m. in the morning kind of thing, right? But that's another massive meat and potatoes section for these red light cameras, and they'll play the footage back right there at the bench, and they'll show them slow down. There's not a car on inside. And they make their way to the right, and they said, Judge, there was nobody there, nobody's behind me, I'm just easing my way through a nearly complete stop, you know. And yet, as the ordinance commands, guilty, $100, and even the fines and everything, well, I don't worry about that, but, so I don't know if I missed the point, Representative Kirtland, on that, but yes, I have seen a lot of people trying to make it.
You addressed it.
Yes.
Any question? Representative Peters.
Commissioner Tanner, Mr. Chair.
Please.
I'm just curious to know, how do you handle to your courtroom and they say, hey, it was an ambulance coming down the street and I had to go through the intersection to make sure that this emergency vehicle could get through? How would that be handled? Are there any provisions or laws on the books currently that allow those individuals for those tickets to be dismissed by the red light camera?
You know, kind of piggyback on Representative Kirkland's question is that I was started to talk about the fact that the ordinance is very strict in its compliance. The one that we had in place actually took it outside of what would have normally been the judge-driven fine paradigm. But because it was written so strictly, and that their contractual agreement with ATS, which is with Redflex, which was the company in our town, I didn't, supposedly, according to the mayor and the council people, I didn't have the latitude to make an adjustment to that fine based on rolling slowly through a red light, make it $10 or something. I would get some grief if I did that, so I had to either like dismiss or find not guilty, that kind of thing. So the short answer was, in the eye of the council and the contract, I had no latitude. You know, if some are of the ilk that, you know, a judge is a referee. You enforce the law, it was broke, and it's over, right? And if it doesn't allow you that latitude as the judicial officer or the referee, then it's guilty or not guilty. Most of the traffic ordinances allow for an SIS, suspended imposition of sentence. I'm gonna put you on probation for a year and see if any other ambulances come behind you, that kind of thing. We'll see how these excuses pan out. On those specific ordinances that I dealt with, hands were tied. If I did break the rule a lot of times, to tell you the truth, I did what I wanted to do several times. You know, take me to task on it because I don't think this is right. But strictly speaking, many times I would have to find them guilty, and that's it. And also, made me remember, you asked about the rental cars too, is that right? Most of the ordinances carve out a section for rental car companies in case they find themselves with a plethora of violations that come through. They can prove that they're a rental company or a cab car company sometimes, or a taxi cab company, I mean, and they'll have a special exemption for those situations, which again goes to Senator Lemke's statement about everybody being treated, you know, the same. If it's the car that gives the ticket, you know, why does it matter if it's the company instead of the person? But I guess that's slightly argumentative.
So in a situation such as the rental car, the company would take on the burden of paying the ticket, or would the rentee take on?
They would either one, turn in who they think was in the car at the time, or they can sign some type of affidavit that they send in that says that they're a company. And sometimes you walk into, I guess I can name them, St. Peter's, the prosecutor there, Lorna Fromm, will have a stack this big she's going through, dismissing every one of them. It has to formally be done still. And it's cab company, rental company, rental company, rental company. Pretty much any car, if you're fortunate enough, registered in the name of a company, like mine's Carter Law Offices, and some of my other friends might be, BJ Construction or whatever. They tend to not even have the tickets issued in the first place most of the time. Just depends on how fervently your officers work in the monitor, I suppose.
Any other questions for the witness representative?
Couple things. First off, I live near St. Peter's, so obviously I'm very familiar with their red light cameras. Luckily, they have a countdown where the crosswalk, so I watch that to determine if I should continue or that. But I have already almost been rear-ended because they do panic me, because I know if I cross that line. But my question, I guess, would come to, you had mentioned about right on red. And I know that is one of the things, and I have spoke with Warner about that. There's no exception. If you don't stop, you get the ticket. That's how it, the wording reads. Do you know, either you or anyone that may be testifying after you, you were saying that the right on red seems to be the most significant with that, or not, as far as getting those tickets?
I mean, I know it's the one that miffs people off the most, when they get before you. There's no arguing that. But again, I probably didn't explain it very clearly, or maybe it just isn't convincing, but that all clear section at the red light when you're waiting on red and your cross traffic was green, turns to red, the engineering of it allows your system to remain red for a little bit to give an all clear to the section, and then everybody proceeds through pretty safely. Those violations, happen a lot where the engineering system is set up for people to come through those last milliseconds, pushing the yellow light or whatever, and they get a lot of tickets that really shouldn't be issued. If an officer was there, I would contend with that kind of discretion, probably wouldn't be given a ticket. But when you look at a camera, you got a 100-degree field of view, and you're in the intersection, it's over, and you get a ticket. I think that miffs people off pretty well too. Another thing to piggyback on Mr. Hayes' statements earlier, I went to get a warrant lifted in St. Louis County one time, and there's two sides to every argument, and I went before him, and I was in a big hurry, and I said, "Judge, it's just a traffic ticket, and he said, "Mr. Carter," he said, "Timothy McVeigh was picked up on a traffic ticket warrant." Red light cameras can't do that.
President Marshall.
Just very quickly, very short.
Please.
Of all the people that have come in front of you on these red light tickets to contest or to provide an explanation, how many of them were represented? That actually made it in front of you on the bench?
Represented by an attorney?
Yes, sir.
I'd say 0, I think.
Exactly.
I'm pretty certain that I do a lot of this legal work. It's nearly 90 or 95% of the municipalities will dismiss one of these tickets if an attorney enters on them.
Now, on all the other traffic tickets, if an attorney enters, do they just automatically dismiss on a speeding ticket?
No, they'll
don't.
work with them to
What do
amend
they
it.
do? They amend it, but they still fine. Why do they dismiss on red light tickets and not, or on camera tickets, pardon me, there's a distinction. Why do they dismiss on camera tickets and not on speeding tickets?
Well, in
Because
fairness,
it's a due process issue, isn't it?
I don't
And the
think-
evidentiary issue.
I think in fairness, there's been such a hotbed issue thanks to Ryan Keene, who's pushed most all of these cases through at the appellate level and won. There's been this area of uncertainty by any and all of the city attorneys and the prosecutors themselves. Most prosecutors I meet, they don't like them. And so they don't like them a little bit, which I can't speak for all of them. And there's a level of uncertainty about whether they're legal in the first place. Why give anybody a test case? We saw what happened in St. Louis City, right? They took them to the mat. They won it. It was clear writing was on the wall. He was going to give them an injunction against them, and then they dismissed. Finally, they dismissed the tickets again. I don't know if you're familiar with the story, but as a last-ditch effort, 11th-hour effort to get rid of the injunction stopping the red light camera program, they tried to dismiss the cases against those infraction violators or whatever. So that type of thing, I think, is what's mostly driven the dismissals on attorneys.
I think it's indicative of the fundamental unfairness of this, and that the only people that have to end up paying this or get found guilty of it are those that don't know the law. Those pro se people are the only ones that are doing it for you, because all the ones that are represented by an attorney, they get dismissed. Every time I've had a client come to me with a red light ticket, it's been dismissed. there's no prosecutor that wants to either amend it or take it to trial against him,